y'all. Thanks so much for watching Making Healthcare Work for You, Different Perspectives and Empowering Solutions. I'm Stephanie Fields, joined by my co-host, Dr. Apoorv Gupta, and today we are welcoming Lonnie Hirsch, who is the co-founder of the Healthcare Reinvention Collaborative and founder and CEO of Forefront Healthcare Consulting. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation.
We had a fabulous conversation during the interview, and one of the things that we'd love to chat about real quick is trust. You said that trust is something that can enhance relationships and collaboration, and it's also when something's not happening, it's usually because there's a gap in trust. So when you're working with big organizations that might not feel overly friendly or loving, as Apoorv and I talk about, how do you start there? How do you break down that first barrier and get to that point where people do trust each other enough to hear the feedback and also have a safe environment where people feel like, oh crap, where they don't feel like if I say that, I'm going to be fired, or there could be this repercussion, and instead know that it's actually going to be a valued piece of information?
That's a really good question and a hard one to answer because there's more fear than there is love in these environments because people are worried. They're either worried about their job or they're worried about something they're working on failing instead of succeeding, or they're worried, whatever they're worried about, whatever fear-based issue they're worrying about. So I think you have to go into it with a common understanding or a common willingness to create a safe space, to allow people to understand that it's our mutual benefit to be able to feel safe with each other and to be able to speak honestly and get to understand each other better and know what we're all going through. And then when we have that environment, we can then start looking at those specific problems or those specific opportunities and see how we might be able to work better together, or achieve more together in that process. But you have to invite people into a space where they're willing to do that, and also not expect that it's going to instantaneously feel like a safe space just because you said, let's try that. You have to develop conversations that make people feel safe. Usually one way to do that is being willing to reveal yourself first. If you're willing to reveal more about who you are and what drives you and what your concerns are, what your fears are, what your frustrations are, what your passions or your hopes are for whatever it is that brought you together, and you do that, and it's not easy, but if you're part of the effort to try to develop that trust, you have to walk your talk, and you have to be willing to be that naked, frankly. You have to be willing to be that open, figuring what's the downside if ultimately you're coming together because you're not where you want to be sufficiently the way that you're doing things. So if it's not working to the level that you want or in the way that you want, you have to try something different. And as I said earlier in the conversation we were having, when those collaborations don't take hold or they fail, if you look a level or two underneath, it's because of a lack of trust. Somebody's worried that they can't trust somebody else, or some group is worried that they can't trust the other group, either because your win is our loss, or because you don't have the same perspective that we have, or whatever it is that creates those barriers. So I mean, you think about it. We're sitting here now and having this conversation where, to me, it feels like a safe space. I mean, the three of us can talk like people to each other, and people who care enough to have the conversation. So a lot can come from that. A lot can emerge from that. Getting people to a point where they're willing to take a step into a space that they don't know is safe, but holding hands together to try to make it a safe space may sound idealistic, but what have you got to lose?
I really loved hearing about that. And it sounds like overall authenticity is the key. Being able to be you and know that other people can be them allows for everybody to then trust each other. It's when we put those veils on that it gets a little questionable.
It's so true, and I've tended to be less frequently using the word authentic or authenticity just because it's been overused, not because it isn't the issue, and it isn't a way to describe it. But it's like, oh, authentic, self and all of that. People just kind of they might tune out a little bit. But this issue of trust is a big one, and it's at the heart of so much that's missing. If you think about what's going on with people who work in healthcare organizations who don't feel like they can trust the people at the top or the people they work next to, the patients who don't feel like they can trust, the people that they're giving themselves to help them. I mean, all of that, those barriers actually are artificially created by us and by our fear.
Yeah, I love the way you tease them out. I love the way you connect the dots to safety and trust, and that you're working at the root of it. Because I totally agree. I think that's the problem. That's what needs to be reinvented in healthcare. So thank you for that effort.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, even though I wasn't going to get into it in this conversation, what we're creating is the opposite of hierarchical. There is no person at the top, handing down the tablets or making sure that things happen. It is a completely collaborative, flat structure where everybody's working together, and we succeed together or we don't.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate the invitation.
And thank you all for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.